Good morning, dear students. A warm welcome to all of you for our today's digital session for the subject Science and Technology Section A. On Saturday, in our previous session, we have completed with the discussion of textual exercise and also the additional questions for chapter number 7, lenses. We had started with question number 8, that is the question of numericals. Question number 8, first sum was over. Today we will continue with the remaining numericals. We will discuss the activities not only for chapter number 7 but also for chapter number 5, activities which are left out. Numericals for chapter number 5 will be done towards the end of the portion because they are going to consume a lot of time. And if time remains, then we will start with a new chapter today itself. Chapter number 8, Metallurgy. We will see the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. So let us begin with the numerical examples. Question number 8, numerical example number 2. First sum was over that day. 5 centimeter high object is placed at a distance of 25 centimeter. Height of the object 5 centimeter. Object is placed at a distance 25 centimeter from a converging lens. Converging lens means a convex lens of focal length 10 centimeter. Determine the position, size and type of the image. You have to determine the position, size and type. So first we will write given h1, that is height of the object, is 5 centimeter. Focal length you are going to take positive because it is a converging lens. It is a convex lens. You have studied the properties. The focal length of convex lens is positive, concave lens is negative. Object distance u, it is always negative. Always you are going to take u as negative. Next, now what to find out? V, that is the image distance, H2, size of the image, and then you are going to determine its nature. First, to calculate V, let us use the formula 1 upon V minus 1 upon U is equal to 1 upon F. You know this is the lens formula. Value of U is given, value of F is there. You can calculate the value of V. So 1 upon V if you keep on the left hand side and take 1 upon U on the right hand side, it will become positive. Now substitution of the values, 1 upon V is equal to 1 upon F in place of F10 and in place of U minus 25. Cross multiplication, now calculations how to do, it is up to you. Minus 25 multiplied by 1 minus 25 plus 10 ones are 10 upon minus 25 into 10 comes out to minus 250. So 1 upon V is equal to minus 25 plus 10 minus 15 upon minus 250. Minus minus gets cancelled off, 3 upon 50. So if you want the value of V, you are going to use invertendo. So 1 upon V, if you make V upon 1, so this 50 will come in the numerator, 3 will come in the denominator, and when you divide 50 by 3, you get 16.7 centimeter. So you have got the value of V as 16.7 centimeter. Next, you have to find the value H2. So you are going to use the formula H2 upon H1 is equal to V upon U. Substitute the values. H2 you have to find out. Keep it as it is. H2 upon H1 is 5 is equal to V. Now V, instead of taking 16.7, you are going to take 50 upon 3. Just now you have got upon U minus 25. Now do the calculations as you wish and you will get the final answer as minus 3.33 centimeter. Now even though you get the value of height as negative, while writing you will always write positive answer because distance is never negative. So size of the image is 3.3 centimeter and nature is real and inverted. I hope you have understood the sum. There is no difficulty. Very simple. Let us go to the previous slides. Once again you will go through it. H1 is given, F is given, U is given. You have to find V and H2 by using the lens formula. You will get the value of V. Calculations is up to you. 1 upon V we have got 30 upon 50. So for V it will be 50 upon 3. This value of V we are substituted ahead over here. You can see V we have taken 50 upon 3. Now calculations as per your wish. Final answer is minus 3.33 centimeter. While writing, you will always write it as positive. Next sum, question number 8, third one. 3 lenses having power 2, 2.5 and 1.7 diopters are kept touching in a row. 3 lenses. What is the total power of the lens combination? It is again a very simple sum. 3 lenses are kept in contact with each other. They are kept touching in a row. Total power. So first we will write what is given. Given is 3 lenses of powers, 2 diopters, 2.5 diopters and 1.7 diopters. You know the unit of power. To calculate total power, it is nothing but the addition of the powers of each lenses. So total power is 2 diopters plus 2.5 plus 1.7 diopters, that comes out to 6.2 diopters. Final answer, total power of lens combination is 6.2 diopters. A very simple sum. Values can be changed. They can change the values and ask the sum in the exam. Next, now question number 8, last numerical to end with this chapter. Then remains our activities. An object kept 60 cm from a lens. Distance of the object is 60 cm. Gives a virtual image 20 cm in front of the lens. What is the focal length of the lens? Now here focal length they have asked us to find. Is it a converging lens or diverging lens? Depending upon the value, whether you get it as negative or positive, you have to determine the type of lens. First given object distance U, I have already told you, you will take it minus 60 cm. V, virtual image 20 cm. So image distance V is minus 20 cm. Virtual image it is. What is the focal length? You have to find the focal length, that is small f. Is it a converging lens or diverging lens? Now as usual you will take the lens formula. 1 upon V minus 1 upon U is equal to 1 upon F. This is the lens formula. Now you are going to substitute the values in this lens formula. The values of V and U. V is minus 20, U is minus 60. Substitute the values. First, they have taken 1 upon U on the right hand side. So, it will be plus 1 upon U. Substitute the given values now. 1 upon F is equal to 1 upon minus 20 minus 1 upon minus 60. Look at the previous slide. 1 upon V minus 1 upon U is equal to 1 upon F. This is our original formula. 1 upon F is taken on the left hand side. So your right hand side, this side remains unchanged. 1 upon V minus 1 upon U. Now here it is the minus sign. You have to substitute here minus 20 and minus 60, which is substituted in the next step. Now cross multiplication or LCM, whichever way you want to go. Minus 60. Minus into minus plus, 21s are 20 plus 20 upon minus into minus plus, 60 into 20 is 1200. Minus 60 plus 20 minus 40 upon 1200. So 1 upon F, instead you want F. So F is equal to 1200 upon minus 40. So answer is minus 30. Now you have got the value of F as minus 30. Focal length is negative. So you know that the lens is a concave lens or a diverging lens. This step Directly after getting f is minus 30, don't write it is a concave lens. First you mention focal length is negative, hence the lens is a diverging or a concave lens. Both the words should not be used, any one word you can use. With this, we have completed with the textual numerical examples. Now, we will discuss the activities for this chapter. Hence, I request all of you to take a textbook in your hands. Page wise, we will discuss the activities. First activity for discussion is on page number 82. Page number 82, towards the end of the page you can see, can you recall, a very simple activity it is. Can you recall what are real and virtual images? How will you find out whether an image is real or virtual? Can a virtual image be obtained on a screen? What are real and virtual images? How will you find out whether an image is real or virtual? Can a virtual image be obtained on a screen? First, you have to write the definition for real and virtual image. Real image. The image formed by the actual intersection of light rays and can be obtained on a screen is a real image. Now, this definition I have taken from the Google Net. Any other relevant definition which suits the real image factor you can write on your own. Virtual image. Virtual image is formed when the light rays appear to be originating from a point but does not actually meet over there. That is virtual image. Now, how will you find out whether an image is real or virtual? If the images are inverted, then they are real, and if they are erect, then they are virtual. So, depending upon the nature of the image, you can find out whether it is real or virtual. And you all know that a real image can be obtained on a screen. Never a virtual image can be obtained. So, your answer, can a virtual image be obtained on a screen? Your third answer is no. A virtual image cannot be obtained on a screen. See how stepwise I have mentioned with the answer. The questions are also given stepwise. First, they have asked what are real and virtual images. So, we have provided the definition. How will you find out whether an image is real or virtual? Then you are going to provide the condition, and can a virtual image be obtained on a screen? Yes or no. In that you will give your answer. Next, on page number 83, you have no activities for discussion. 84, 85, 86, 87, there are no activities. 88 page number, a very important activity. Try this. Page number 88, all of you refer the top side of the page. The very first line is the activity. The activity says, try to read a book keeping it very far from your eyes. Try to read a book keeping it very close to your eyes. Try to read a book keeping it at a distance of 25 cm from your eyes, at which time you see the alphabets clearly and why. Now you know this is a logical question where you have to use the concept which you have studied in the human eye about the minimum distance of distinct vision. So you know that the minimum distance of an object from a normal eye at which it is clearly visible without any strain is known as minimum distance, and that is 25 centimeter. So if you are keeping a book very far away from your eyes or very close, you will not be able to get a clear image. But when you keep it at a distance of 25 centimeter, then only you will see the alphabets clearly, and why, for why you are going to provide with the logic of minimum distance. So first step I have answered. The alphabets can be read clearly by keeping the book at a distance of approximately 25 centimeter from the eyes. First we have answered this part of the question. At which time you will see the alphabets clearly. So when the book is at a distance of 25 centimeter, then you will see the alphabets clearly. Why? This is because for a normal eye, minimum distance at which an object can be seen most distinctly without strain is about 25 centimeter in front of the eye. And in other cases, what will happen? The object which are placed at a distance less or more than 25 centimeter, they will appear blur. So if you place the book at a proper distance of 25 centimeter, then only you will be able to read the alphabets clearly. In other cases, the alphabets will appear blur. And why? Because it depends upon the minimum distance, that principle which has to be followed if you want to see the object, the alphabets clearly. Then one more thing I would like to bring to your notice is the defects of vision. I have already discussed this with you. They can give the name of any child and they can ask you that a convex, dash and dash is a child from a class who wears a spectacles with concave lens. Which type of defect is the child suffering from? Then if concave lens has been used, then you know that the child is suffering from myopia or nearsightedness. On the other hand, if they ask the child is wearing a spectacles of convex lens, then you will say that the child is suffering from hypermetropia. Or if a person is wearing a bifocal lens, which defect? Presbyopia. And then once you identify the defect, further questions which they ask, what are the reasons for their defect, or where is the image of the particular object, from that you can answer very easily. What is the power of the spectacles? Such type of questions, be prepared for all the three types of defects. Our next activity is on page number 89. Use your brain power. The first one, why do we have to bring a small object near the eyes in order to see it clearly? You have studied about the apparent side of an object. Just above the use your brain power activity, you have that paragraph. Somewhere you have to link the topic. When we bring small objects near the eyes, the angle subtended by the object at the eye becomes large, which makes the eye to see the object clearly. When we bring small objects near the eyes, the angle subtended by the object at the eye, it becomes large, which makes the eye to see the object clearly. Next one is, second question I don't have to answer, so many times we have answered. If we bring an object closer than 25 centimeter, so refer the above topic and the minimum distance and you have to answer it. Page number 90, there are no activities. Page number 91, there is one small activity. Try this in the center of the page. First one, there is no such question which they have asked. Take a burning incense stick in your hand and rotate it fast along a circle. No questions are asked. So second activity we will take. Draw a cage on one side of a cardboard and a bird on the other side. Hang the cardboard with the help of a thread. Twist the thread and leave it. What do you see and why? You know, when such an activity is carried out by drawing cage on one side and bird on the other side of the cardboard, and just the cardboard is moving, it appears to you that the bird is inside the cage. And this is due to the phenomenon of persistence of vision, which we have studied in this chapter. One small diagram also for your information I have put here. And you will write, the bird appears to be inside the cage. This happens due to persistence of vision. Such type of questions can be asked in the exam. Our last activity for this chapter to complete with the chapter is, can you tell on the same page? How do we perceive different colors? Answer lies in the paragraph just below that activity. Last paragraph of that page number 91. Mark carefully. Point number 1 is the first line of that last paragraph. The retina in our eyes is made up of many light sensitive cells. These cells are shaped like a rod and like a cone. Second point, continue marking. Rod like cells respond to intensity of light and give information about the brightness or dimness of the object to the brain, whereas the conical cells respond to color and give information about the color of the object to the brain. Third point, continue marking over there. Brain processes all the information received and we see the actual image of the object. Fourth point, rod-like cells respond to faint light. Also, but conical cells do not, and thus we perceive colors only in bright light. Now these are the 4 points which I have marked and given to you in the textbook. Doesn't mean same answer you are going to write. You can reduce the length of the answer. You can pick up the main theme, the main reasoning part, why you perceive different colors and all. So you prepare your own answer and then you can write it in the exam. With this, I declare that chapter number 7 is fully complete. We have completed the explanation, we have completed the discussion of textual exercise, additional questions, numericals and activities. So in full sense, chapter number 7 is over. Now for chapter number 5, heat, activities which were remaining, that we will start with the discussion now. All of you move on to page number 62, chapter number 5, heat. Page number 63, you have your first activity towards the bottom of the page. Page number 63, towards the bottom of the page, use your brain power. Is the concept of latent heat applicable during transformation of gaseous phase to liquid phase and from liquid phase to solid phase? Now you know what is latent heat. It is nothing but the heat energy which is absorbed at a constant temperature during the transformation of any phase to the other phase. So your answer is yes. Concept of latent heat is applicable when it is the transformation from gaseous to liquid and from liquid to solid. Where does the latent heat go during these transformations? What about the latent heat? It either gets absorbed or sometimes it is given out or rejected by the actual object or the actual body during the transformations. Very simple words you have to give the answer. The latent heat is either absorbed or given out by the actual object during these transformations. Next page, page number 64, if you see, use your brain power is there. That activity I have not taken because in the above experiment, the wire moves through the ice slab and all. That activity is based on the above topic, regelation, which we have already discussed. Page number 65, there are no activities. Page number 66, very important activities are there. Use your brain power. Page number 66. First activity is already done for you in the textual part. In regions with cold climate, the aquatic plants and animals can survive even when the atmospheric temperature goes below 0 degree. If you refer question number 6a, that is the answer, and that answer I have already given to you when I have discussed the textual exercise. So this again I won't give. You have to use the same answer over there. Second one. In cold regions in winter, the pipes for water supply break and even the rocks crack. In cold regions in winter, the pipes for water supply break and even rocks crack. So I will give the answer for breaking of the pipes. For the rocks crack, similar concept you are going to use about anomalous behavior and you will write the answer. Now you know that in the cold regions, in winter season, the temperature of the surroundings of the atmosphere, it even falls below 0 degrees Celsius. That should be your first point. In cold regions during winter, the temperature of the air, the atmosphere, even falls below 0 degrees Celsius. When discussing about the survival of aquatic life, that time I have given you the same points. More or less the points are same. Little bit the difference you will see. Second point, hence the temperature of water inside the pipeline, it also decreases. You know, as the temperature in the surrounding, it goes on decreasing, the temperature of water also inside the pipeline will lower down. And as you know, the temperature goes below 4 degree. What will happen? When the temperature of water falls below 4 degrees Celsius, it begins expanding instead of contracting due to anomalous behavior of water. This topic somewhere should be included in the answers, whether it is about the survival of aquatic life, whether it is about the cracking of the rocks or breaking of the water pipes. This will have 1 mark. And at what temperature? Mention that very carefully. As there is no place for expansion, the water starts exerting tremendous pressure on the walls of the pipes, causing them to burst or to break. As water starts expanding, it should contract, but it starts expanding due to anomalous behavior. And when it starts expanding and finds no space, no place for expansion, it starts exerting pressure on the walls of the pipes, and at a stage the pipes this burst. So that is the answer. Similarly, for rocks crack, same you are going to write. First point remains same. Second point also you will write inside the crevices of the rocks in place of pipeline. Then and then about the anomalous behavior, and as there is no place in the crevices of the rocks for expansion, it starts putting tremendous pressure on the rocks, due to which the rocks they crack or they crumble into pieces. I hope once the concept is understood by you, now all the three types of answer, if anyone is asked in the exam, you will be able to write about the aquatic life, about the breaking of the pipes or the cracking of the rocks. The main theme, the main topic which you are going to use is about the anomalous behavior of water and how in the cold regions the temperature of the surrounding it falls down. So the activity on page number 66 is over. 67, try this activity about the bottle taken out from the refrigerator. Also we have discussed in the textual exercise. Page number 68 and 69, there are no activities for discussion. So chapter number 5 also gets over here. Only the textual numericals for this chapter are remaining, which I have already informed today also will be taken up when the portion gets over. Now there is still some amount of time left. So we will start with a new chapter from section A. Chapter number 8, Metallurgy. Now 8 and 9 which are remaining are quite lengthy chapters, but theoretical, so memorization of the topics, the things is a must. Lot of equations are also there, so be very careful. Chapter number 8, Metallurgy, page number 93. You know the physical properties of metals and non-metals. They have removed out from the syllabus due to pandemic. So our next topic which we are going to start with the study of this chapter is about the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Ahead you are going to study about the reactivity series of metals, about the ionic compounds, and then the various concepts related to metallurgy. So we start with the chemical properties of metals. You have seen how reactive the metals are. Last year also you had studied about the formation of sodium chloride. So the first is metals are reactive in nature. Then you know they lose electrons very easily and become positively charged ions. Sodium loses its single electron which is there in the outermost shell and becomes positively charged ion. Metals are called electropositive elements. Why electropositive? Because electrons are being donated. You have studied about the metallic non-metallic character also in chapter number 2. So to begin with the chemical properties, you can say initial properties which you have studied are metals are reactive, lose electrons easily, and are electropositive elements. Now we are going to study the reactions of metals with oxygen, with water, with acids, and then with nitric acid especially. So let us first see the reaction of metals with oxygen. You know a general step. Any metal, it combines with oxygen. On heating in air and metal oxides are formed. The respective metallic oxides are formed. Sodium and potassium, this both metals are very reactive metals. They have given the reaction of sodium. Sodium reacts with oxygen forming Na2O, that is sodium oxide. See how the balancing is done. See about the physical states of the reactants and products which are mentioned. Sodium solid, oxygen gas. Sodium oxide is in the solid state. Now, this sodium metal is so reactive that it combines with oxygen in the air even at room temperature and forms sodium oxide. On exposure to air, sodium readily catches fire, and hence to prevent any accident in the laboratory or elsewhere, it is always kept in kerosene. Oxides of some of the metals, if you see, you know that metals, they combine with oxygen to form the metallic oxides. So oxides of some of the metals, they are soluble in water and they react with water to form alkali. Now here a reason gets prepared. Sodium is always stored in kerosene. So what you will write, sodium is a very reactive metal, reacts with oxygen from the air and even can catch fire. So to prevent accidents, it is stored in kerosene, and then you have to provide with the chemical equation in support of your answer. Next, now reaction of metals with water. We will complete that and then we will stop with our today's session. Reaction of metals with water. So before going over there, magnesium oxide is formed on burning magnesium ribbon in air. This is the experiment which we have done in practicals. Practical number 2. Now this magnesium oxide, just now I have told, oxides of some metals, they are soluble in water and they form an alkali. So magnesium oxide reacts with water to form an alkali, magnesium hydroxide. So here both the reactions you have to provide magnesium plus oxygen forming MgO. Then this magnesium oxide reacting with water forming magnesium hydroxide. Now in this chapter they can give you half of the reactions. Either reactants will be given, you have to write the products, or somewhere they will keep the places blank. So the entire equations, all the equations in this chapter should be studied by you thoroughly. Now reaction of metals with water. On page number 95, the first two reactions they have removed out from the syllabus. That is sodium and potassium reacting with water. So we have to start with calcium. Now all of you know calcium is a metal which reacts with water slowly and less vigorously. Hydrogen gas which is released in this reaction, it collects on the surface of the metal in the form of bubbles. So you can see calcium reacting with water forming calcium hydroxide with the liberation of hydrogen gas, which settles on the surface of this metal and the metal floats on water. Similarly, if you study about aluminium, iron, zinc, they will not be seen reacting with cold or hot water, but instead they react with steam to form their oxides. Take a note over here. If they ask reaction of aluminium with water, then very precisely you have to mention that they do not react with cold or hot water, but they react with steam. Then provide the reactions aluminium plus water, that is steam. See the phase, gaseous. Here for calcium it is water in the liquid state. So take a note over here, forming aluminium oxide with the liberation of hydrogen gas. Everywhere if you see common, when a metal reacts with water, it forms its particular oxide with the liberation of hydrogen gas. Zinc reacts with water forming zinc oxide with the liberation of hydrogen gas. So today we have studied about the reaction of metals with oxygen, then reaction of metals with water. In our next session, we will study how metals react with acids, nitric acid, and then we will study about the chemical properties of non-metals, about the ionic compounds. So I request all of you, before you attend our next session, go through this particular topics and then attend the session. Thank you, dear children.